Thank you, Kim. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. My name is Jessica Morrison, Realtor with Ferris Property Group. And tonight we have back a familiar face, Kim Dewitt with Highlands Residential Mortgage. Kim, thank you so much for joining me again. You must be a very brave individual.
That's right. No, there's always a good time. Thursday nights for sure.
Yeah. So Thursday nights, grab a glass of wine. Join me on Thursday nights with real estate tips and everything else. But tonight we're focusing, if you haven't had a chance, on the election and life after the election. I promise you, the sky is not falling, based on my caption for this video. But Kim and I just really clicked in the last video that we did, talking generally about mortgage tips for real estate. If you haven't seen that video, please go back and check it out. But tonight we're going to focus on what mortgage and real estate as industries overall are going to look like after the election. And I feel like I need to have this huge legal disclaimer. I am not a mortgage expert. I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't have a crystal ball, and neither does Kim. So we are giving you our best advice based on our experience, but please go out and do your own due diligence and research. Don't take just our word for it. We are just trying to help guide you all in the right direction, meaning we want to serve your best interests and make sure that you are not operating or making decisions based out of fear, but one of confidence and understanding and backed by logic and data. So, Kim, I want to turn this over to you. Before we get too far down the rabbit trail, did you have anything that is just really on your chest that you'd like to get off on the topic?
It's been just a whirlwind, probably of a week. There's all this built up anticipation with regards to and surrounding the election and interest rates. There's so many people that are in the midst of purchasing a home and, don't know if they're ready to lock their interest rate in, or if they're in a refi, or they're on the fence of refinancing and, scrambling to get an interest rate locked in. So, I will say that we were all very pleasantly surprised that post-election day, we haven't seen as much instability in the interest rates as we thought could have been possible. In fact, it's quite the contrary, that interest rates have somewhat stabilized, if not even improved slightly. So, where we were all hunkering down and trying to lock as quickly as we could, at great rates, mind you, like I said, I think we're pleasantly surprised at what we're currently seeing and what is forecasted ahead.
That makes a lot of sense. I think overall the stock market too hasn't seen overall too much volatility as what I was expecting. We've been watching Bitcoin just out of curiosity, and I think there was greater expectation of volatility with that, and it's actually been pretty stable. So I know Bitcoin's more of a unicorn compared to general stocks, but
Right.
That makes a lot of sense on interest rates as well. Do you think interest rates are going to change behavior-wise based on the presidential candidate of who's elected, or is it going to be its own thing?
Right. Now, that's a great question too. I think so much of the fear surrounding the election was the potential for a one-sided government, essentially, meaning that, if, for example, President Trump was not reelected, we're unsure of what Biden would potentially put into policy, or what policies he would try to put forth. Fortunately, what we are seeing is that most likely the Republicans are going to maintain Senate presence, which means that it's more of a balanced government. So any of that uncertainty surrounding, a total one-sided government is somewhat put at rest or put at bay. And so, there's more, I guess, secure thoughts thinking that, interest rates are going to stabilize. There's already talk about the Feds, buying up more mortgage-backed securities, which could ultimately impact interest rates positively for consumers, meaning that they would go down. So, like I said, I really think it's a good thing what we're seeing over the last 2 days from, a lender standpoint. We're seeing mortgage-backed securities up, which is always good in our eyes, which impacts interest rates, lets them go down. So, I think we're seeing good things. We're seeing good indicators.
As always, Kim, you're such a wealth of knowledge. I think we could do an hour-long interview on just each of these different topics.
Yeah,
And it's amazing too for those who aren't like as native to these discussions with real estate. I am always continually presently surprised, and sometimes it's kind of an annoying thing, but how much of politics is intertwined with real estate. Have you noticed that as well?
it is, right. You would think like, so what does that have to do with it, right? But apparently, it's the big picture. It's, different policies such as, corporate taxation or, there's just so many different factors or things that could have slight implications that add up to much larger implications that could ultimately affect the housing market as well as interest rates long term, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially if your local municipality chooses to give some type of tax rebate or lower tax incentives for a company coming in and choosing to build. They might be incentivized, like Amazon, for example. They might not have to pay as much in taxes because they're bringing all of these jobs. And that's why, when Amazon HQ2 way back when, that seems like a forever ago discussion.
I know, right? Yeah, does.
But, when all of these cities were starting to compete for Amazon to come into the area, a lot of residents were expressing concerns, hey, Amazon's going to get all these great deals and then our city is going to turn around and suffer for it. And this is generally speaking, I'm not speaking
Right.
on behalf of Indianapolis, but, that's kind of where Kim is coming from is, in a way, this is an encouragement for you to pay attention to your local politics. Who's being elected, what is being potentially rezoned or being brought before the planning commission, because it's a domino effect. And in some ways it's exhausting because right when you win one little battle, you have to turn around and fight another one. But that's important just to continually be making that effort to show up. And I almost say I'd rather be paying more attention to who is in my local and state government than on the national level, because I feel like we have more control on a local level than we will on a national impact. And that might sound pessimistic, but what do you
No,
think?
no, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, you feel like you can weigh or your voice is heard or potentially heard more than it would be on national. I agree completely.
Yeah. And again, it's just important that we research candidates, but bringing things back to a real estate side, because it is such a complex discussion, as the last couple of minutes have just outlined. Kim, I have slides I can go ahead and jump into and we can go off of that. But outside of interest rates overall being what is forecasted to be stable, is there anything else on the mortgage side? I know refinancing was something that we touched on last time. Do you have an update on refinancing for after the election?
Like I said, I think and we've had just an onslaught of people kind of come out of the woodwork. A prime example, I had a girl actually in Whitestown that had contacted us, I want to say back in September, about refining. And then all of a sudden, Monday, day before election, she's like, oh my gosh, should I do it? What should I do? Literally, we had her loan processed and locked within probably an hour and a half. And she was so pleasantly surprised. I think she was saving like $280 a month. So I think there's still that potential. I don't know if there's a fear out there. Here's another example. We had someone that we work with, and she had reached out about a year ago to refinance, and I don't know what the situation was then. I don't know if interest rates were a point higher at that point. Reached out again today. She's still at 5%. To drop your interest rate, we're looking on average, depending on credit score, LTV, DTI. You're looking, most likely you would be eligible for an interest rate sub 3 with a 30-year fixed rate loan. And to drop your interest rate by 2.25%, I mean, shoot, you're talking hundreds, like upwards of $500 in savings. I mean, it just even, I don't know if people don't know, or if they think or have this stigma in their mind, oh, I need to drop my interest rate a full point to make it worth my while.
Mm.
That's not the case. I mean, and Mike and I always kid and laugh, after we are closing refinances recently, but we're saying, hey, I'm sorry to say this because I truly think we'll probably never be able to help you again with a mortgage because this is probably the lowest interest rate you'll have. I mean, yes, interest rates might tick down slightly as they had about 2 months ago, but I don't see them going sub 2. I don't see that. So in reality, when you're looking at an interest rate in the 2s, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's definitely worth a shot and worth talking about and worth looking at.
Yeah. Well, and you can always buy down your rate if you really feel the need to get it below 2%. But
right.
I've heard some people joke that it's free money when the
Right.
rates are as low as it is. And, I wasn't around when it was 1970s, 1980s,
Right.
like 14, 15.
Gosh, I can't even fathom.
I mean,
Yeah.
what was the highest rent? Do you happen to know?
I had a good infographic on that. We should Google that or something, but I would think it would have been above 15. I should Google that and see if I can find it. But yeah, I mean, in comparative, when you're talking 2%, oh my gosh, that's huge. Yeah.
And I can hear the internet troll being like, well, life was very different back then, a gallon of milk wasn't the same price. Interest rate has certainly changed, but still, I mean, in concept, interest rate as a percentage is still a percentage, and that's crazy.
You know what I've seen, Jessica, and I don't know if you have it in terms of the realtor vantage point, but every once we've had a couple first-time home buyers come to us, and they're always I don't want to say guarded, but they always preempt the conversation with, okay, we're in a lease until May, we're just getting started. I really don't think we're going to do anything. And then I am not kidding you, within less than 2 weeks we have a purchase agreement. I'm like, what do you mean? And I think that sometimes first-time homebuyers are just pleasantly surprised, like, this is more doable than we thought, and we found something we really like. And yeah, do you hear or see that?
I see the guardedness. I feel like it's rare to see somebody turn around and do what they said they were going to do on that front. But I'm sure that, there's a difference in volume and the type of client as well. Sure. I'd be curious to see what other agents would have to say on that. But I think it doesn't surprise me in that sense to hear somebody come back and say, oh yeah, well, we chose to do this because of these reasons. And I think that kind of reminds me of when we go in to purchase a used vehicle. Like, we have our guard up, or when I go into a retail shopping center, I don't want someone to come and try and solicit me or sell me on a perfume or whatever. Like, I want to do it. And like, that's why everybody loves online shopping, is because you don't have a salesperson trying to sell you more stuff that you don't need. But I think that a lot of times when people come into contact with sales professionals, especially whether it's a real estate or mortgage professional, we're compensated on when we sell something, that you have to really work to build that rapport and that trust. And that comes from education, that comes from providing value and helping the client to understand what the objections are for why, a lot of times when I have conversations, especially with first-time home buyers, it's because they have a lease that is maybe 6 to 9 months out and expiring, and they kind of want to start the conversation now, but they don't want to move right now because then they have to break their lease. And there's ways to get out of that lease with an asterisk next to it, but like, you can certainly be creative. And whether it's working with a seller or a builder to help buy out your lease, or maybe negotiate with the landlord. But it makes complete sense to me, based on the current market advantages, why somebody would turn around from thinking they're going to move in May to doing something sooner.
Yeah, it's just surprising, but I'm pleasantly surprised.
Right. You're not going to say no to another purchase agreement. Okay, well, that's actually a really great segue, because when we were practicing this, a little bit ago, we have a slide on that for reasons why people choose to sell now versus later, or sell later. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to that.
Perfect.
Did that come through, Kim?
Yeah, it did. It looks good.
Okay, good. So 4 reasons why the election won't dampen the housing market. Drum roll.
Okay.
So this really comes down to 4 distinct reasons, and there's quite a few complexities. I mean, this is a very varied discussion, especially on who you talk to and the data that you look at, but it really always comes back to these 4 key things: demand, low interest rates, price appreciation, and the overall history of the market.
Yep.
So the percent change in actual monthly new home sales, November versus October, as impacted by an election overall in a presidential election years, it's down 15%. Versus non-presidential election years, it's only down 9.8%. So we do see a decrease there. Kim, what do you think on that slide?
Yeah, I mean, it seems very plausible for sure. And I'm curious, just speaking to that, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but do you see, is there a similar decline, do you think, in December? I mean, is it like that at the end of the year typically? I guess we see from a lender standpoint, as far as purchases are concerned, I do see December as one of the slower months for us. And I don't know, I guess if the data would reflect that maybe.
Yes, generally speaking, in a non-presidential election year, you start to see inventory slow down kind of in October because people have moved into their preferred school system. And,
right.
And in general, like if you're going to look at October, it's more busy than November, December, January. But I remember the last 2 years, January felt like March. It was so busy because people the tricky thing with winter is fewer homes come on the market, but there still might be the same level of activity of buyers. So it still can create a very fierce competition, even though it might be the middle of winter.
Right.
Which feels odd to the buyer. But so to answer your question, I don't have a slide on hand for the presidential.
Yeah, no, but that makes sense completely. And and especially with the uncertainty that we've spoken about, that clearly in an election year, there's probably going to be, a disparity.
Yeah, I would say my best guess would be that it would still be down a little bit, but that it would improve, like, 9.8 versus 15. I wonder if maybe it would be down 10 and then 13 or so.
Okay, a shorter, smaller gap. Yeah.
In theory.
Right.
History suggests that the slowdown is largely concentrated in the month of November. In fact, the year after a presidential election is the best of the 4-year cycle. This suggests that the demand for new housing is not lost because of election uncertainty. Rather, it gets pushed out to the following year as long as the economy stays on track. Last part is extremely critical.
And that's right. And that's what, we've been listening very closely to analysts lately. And I would say the majority of what we're hearing is that, they're forecasting some decent stability and that those interest rates are going to stay similar to what you showed in that one. Or was it on here? Not yet. You showed me a slide about interest rates, but right, that they're not going to, you're not going to see a jump. I would highly doubt from everything that we've heard that, this time next year, we're going to see interest rates above 4% like they were last year.
Yeah, I think the wild card, Kim, on that is going to be the tax plan. Like if Biden is elected, I'm really curious, not on a real estate level. Like I don't think necessarily that, well, it might in some ways, but not like in a drastic, like, oh, there's going to be a sudden surge of 20% foreclosures on the market.
Right.
Oh, good golly. But something that, if Biden's tax plan were to come into play and you have people who are living in homes and able to afford more because they are not paying as much in taxes, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some people downsize because of that. Do you think that that's a correct?
Yeah, no, I mean, there's so many angles that you can look at that, right? I mean, agreed. And so, yeah. So then I mean, like, I know we've talked about this cycle before. So then who's moving into that higher um, property value home, taking over the people who are downsizing? I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't want that theory or question to undermine the general principle in this slide.
Right.
I think that there are a variety of factors that suggest that we will not only be a stable real estate market in 2021, because even if the worst should happen and we do have, foreclosures come into play because of forbearances, which is a whole nother subject because of equity, but you also have people who I think have been trying to upsize and haven't. So if people on the high end have to sell to downsize, I feel like there's enough movement at every price point in the market that even if we did see more inventory come into play, it wouldn't become a sudden buyer's market, with the understanding of certain cities like Chicago or markets that are already a buyer's market.
Right.
But maybe a little bit of a neutralizing rather than it being a drastic swing.
Right. No, and I see that. And I think too, I know when you touched on this earlier, but we also, not only is this an election year, but I mean, what kind of year was this? I mean, a COVID year.
Yes.
So I think I truly have seen so many people's buying. Well, I don't want to say, I can't make a generalization, but so many people where maybe they thought about downsizing because they wanted to use that extra money for travel are now reconsidering and saying, I want that home with the land. And right. Or now we're seeing quite a few people come out with, wanting to purchase investment properties rather than use that for travel money. Or, yeah, I mean, it's just a whole different ball of wax. There's really,
yeah.
So
it's a very fun, complex discussion, and we do not have enough time to cover every angle of it because it's so fun. Like it's fun to watch on this side of the table how consumer behavior has changed and the buying desires of our clients and what's motivating people to make the decisions that they do. And it's not fun and like I'm making fun of you. It's just it's neat to watch things evolve over time.
No, it's just right. Like you said, I think we're just so passionate about what we do. I mean, I always have to just excuse myself. I mean, I'm like, that's the geekiness brain in me that I like that. I mean, it's always funny. Somebody was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for having you to run these numbers. My husband wants to see them. I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like I geek out. I have my spiral notebook here. I go through these 5 subject notebooks, like literally almost weekly, because I just like scribble and I love coming up with solutions and, I don't know. So I think it's so interesting to me to see what's changing and just to help people kind of think through, what they're trying to achieve that's different than what they ever thought they would even be asking about. So
I think that's the best part, is being able to have that education or be able to do that due diligence on behalf of people and to come back and help them see, these are all the options that you have, and watch their eyes light up and to go from discouragement or not thinking they could get anything to almost surprised and like questioning, the amount that's on their pre-approval letter. And so yes, and I don't know anybody who's geeky like that.
Now you do. Yourself, I would say, right?
Yeah, I love it. And I think you and I both, we were talking earlier as well, for those watching. So Kim and I tend to be more drivers when we come to data. Like neither one of us necessarily enjoy data. Like we love learning about the process to be able to explain it to our clients, but we both are married to people who love analyzing data. And so we try to prepare ourselves to better serve our clients in some ways by knowing how our spouse operates, which helps us to in turn
Right.
be able to serve other
Right.
people.
Like I love, like I think we talked about too, just I love the big concepts and understanding that, but I also need to understand how to relay that to someone who
Yes.
doesn't speak exponential language, or I always say, hold on, Mike, you're talking Chinese to me. I need this, I want to understand it in layman's terms. So yeah.
Yes. So to get us back on track, even though
Mm-hmm.
I think it's always fun for people to get to know us on the other side of the screen a little bit better, to redirect back to our little presentation here. Yeah, it's a super fancy presentation with the slide deck. But for those who might be concerned, this may indicate that potential homebuyers may become more cautious in the face of national election uncertainty. This caution is temporary and ultimately results in deferred sales, as the economy, jobs, interest rates, and consumer confidence all have far more meaningful roles in the home purchase decision than a presidential election result in the months that follow. Poor job at reading that, but basically there are other things in play here that, while a presidential election can cause a tightening in sales, ultimately we are going to see an uptick in activity, because if the economy is truly good, which we have a good economy, we have lots of jobs and we have interest rates, or jobs moving in particular sectors anyway,
Right.
And consumer confidence based, the stock market, which this did not get enough press, but GDP is up to, I think it's 33.1% now.
My gosh, you're right.
Like it's doing really, really good.
Yeah.
So, again, this caution is temporary, but Kim, do you have any weigh in on this slide before I hit next?
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you. It's not a whole lot, really.
Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Okay. Which this tends to segue into the top 3 reasons that homeowners are not putting your house on the market. If you are watching this and a homeowner, I would love to see you confirm any of these.
Right.
What is it? A, B, C, or D?
Right.
all of the above.
All the above. Yeah.
I would say when I talk to people about selling, some of it is financial security, and then a good handle of it is also like the life is too certain right now. I'm curious, Kim, on the clients that you're working with, if they've chosen to refinance instead of purchasing, what maybe their reasons for not selling are.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't, that's a really good question. I don't think per se we've had it where, well, you know what? I do have one in particular. It's a Zionsville family that they originally came to us wanting to be pre-approved for purchase. And they live in a newer neighborhood. It's a Dries home neighborhood. But wanted to buy a home that's in a more established, older neighborhood in town. And then what they found, though, is that to get to the point, to get the home, the older home, the existing home, to where they wanted it, based on the home value and the price that they could get that home, it made more sense to stay where they are, refinance, take some cash out, and put in a pool. So that's, like I said, I think it ultimately they were hoping to move into something that they could envision for themselves, like I said, an older neighborhood, more established, closer to town, versus a neighborhood across 421, that kind of thing. But their home is extremely nice. It's 30, 40, almost 40 years younger than ours, this neighborhood. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, they realized how much it would take to upgrade or get that home that they would buy to the level of where they wanted it to be acceptable in terms of, living forever. And I think they thought that that amount of money would far outweigh what it would take, to put in a pool or finish their basement, or, and I really think it depends on too, what are their goals? I mean, do they want to, do they want to live rather than a subdivision? Do they want to live closer? Like if, say, in Zionsville, if we're talking about that, do you want to live in the village where real estate is a lot more per square footage than anywhere else? I think it kind of boils down to ultimately at the end of the day what's most important. But there are those people that are coming out and saying, you know what, we're staying where we are and we're going to redo our house, and so we need some cash out. But
yes, and I know that every contractor right now will attest to that. And I think it's funny. I'm actually curious to see a post-pandemic stabilizing or like a re-normalizing of life, if that's hard to quantify at the moment, what that's going to look like. But pre-pandemic, generally speaking, pools were harder to sell than subdivisions. And now it's just completely flipped, and I get why, but I wonder if pools are still going to be all the rage.
I mean, I agree. I don't know, but we've had quite a few of those conversations. So
yeah, I think if you are putting a pool in and you have like no backyard besides the pool, it's probably not a good idea, generally speaking. But really, once you get over 700, it's Indiana, so the buyer expectations are going to be pretty high.
Right. Yeah.
But, I've also had some families that have kids and, their kids are still little, or they've got little kids despite having older kids, and, they just don't feel comfortable having a pool in the higher price points. So it just really depends, I guess. But
the only other thing that I have seen, and maybe you've seen this too, is I have seen a slew of people this fall who are curious. I think they're curious. I think they've seen homes sell for values that they had didn't expect, pleasantly didn't, they're much higher than they thought. And so they're just trying to see what they can get. And if it fits the bill, then they're ready to go rent for a while. So without anything in mind, right. I've seen that.
Yeah. Rent's a funny discussion because like rental prices on average should continue to increase. And again, this is kind of a side discussion / completely separate discussion, because then you get into rental protections right now with COVID, and
right.
those are going to be easing here soon. But from an investing standpoint, people will always need a place to lay their head. So generally speaking, rentals or a buy and hold strategy or a flip strategy is still a good idea. The problem is, because properties continue to appreciate and inventory is so low, investors are not able to have the margins that they would prefer, but they benefit because there's not enough rentals available.
Right.
They are able to charge more of a premium, and because interest rates are lower, they do have greater flexibility on how much they can make per month. I think it just goes back to what you and I were talking about before this presentation, that the margins right now for investors are really lean. So maybe investors might not be able to, like, they want to purchase properties but are not able to purchase as many as they would prefer, because they're not generating the cash flow that they would be or should be, because the Fed is keeping rates low. What do you think?
Right. No, I do see that for sure. Right. And yes, because obviously you don't want to get in high, clearly, obviously it's it's kind of the optimal time would be to buy an investment property when there's a lagging market, One thing I have seen though, Jessica, is a lot of inquiry on investment properties or investors calling and asking for rates and such, but they're buying new build.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going into communities, and I would say typically it's that community that's a 225 to 350 range.
Mm-hmm.
Some are townhomes, some of them are low maintenance communities. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of those going in and buying sight unseen brand new properties. Yeah.
Yeah, the
So they're,
thing about that, if you are an investor watching this, that you will have to be careful of. I actually had clients purchase in a townhome community a couple of years ago, and they found out that one of their neighbors was renting their property out, and that community actually had an HOA requirement that those properties were not allowed to be rented out. But
oh really? They
the
had to be owner occupied?
yes,
Okay.
and the it kind of got into it with the builder sales consultant a little bit about, like, was this disclosed? Did the buyer doing this, rent this out knowingly against the rules
Right.
and all of that? And I think since then it's been resolved. But if you are considering purchasing a rental or property for the purpose of renting in a new home construction community, you will want to make sure that that is allowed in the covenants. I've seen that be more of an issue with properties that have an attached wall, like whether it's
Oh, right.
a condo or villa or townhome style, have more likely to have restrictions than a single detached family home
That's
in a planned
interesting.
unit development.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. I could see that coming into play.
Yeah, I got to do the due diligence as an
Yeah.
investor. But I mean, generally speaking, investors tend to shy away from new home construction because it's more expensive on a cost per
Right.
square foot. But the
Right.
nice thing is you don't have to deal with all of these updates. And a
Right.
lot of times the properties that are going to need work are either, they're priced higher because there's not enough inventory. So you're paying a premium as an investor, or maybe just a little bit below market rate. But then you've got to put all this work in only to end up back at a certain market rate because you want to be competitive. And I just wonder I think every investor is a little bit different on what their tolerance is for risk every
Oh,
month.
sure. Right. No, right. I do too. But yeah, I do, though. I have seen quite an uptick in inquiry about financing for that type of property, and the majority of the investors are looking at brand new builds, never been occupied.
Do you happen to know if those investors are local that you're talking
That I would
about?
say the last 4 that I've talked to are.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 out of 4.
Yeah, because it's the other thing too. If you're an investor and you're not local, new construction is generally speaking also a safer bet because you have more eyes in play on the construction quality, so to speak.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Okay. Sorry to diverge.
no, it's a good discussion, and I think it's extremely relevant. And before I forget, on the subject of foreclosures with investors, one thing to think about: if you are a buyer anticipating a massive foreclosure crisis next year, which I don't think is going to happen. I think we will see a slight uptick in foreclosure activity, but I don't think it's going to be this like doom and gloom type thing. Is keep in mind, if you are planning to purchase via financing as a buyer, you are going to be competing against cash investors who have been waiting for those foreclosures to come back on the market. So just something to keep in mind.
Yep. Very good point.
So this other slide is really important. We've kind of touched on this already, and I don't really want to read it verbatim, but basically the point of this is that if you are thinking of selling now, some people think, oh, if I wait, I can also get a strong price later. But the problem is when you wait to sell in the spring versus selling right now, when you sell in the spring, you're also going to be buying at the spring prices. So you're going to pay to trade up or have that trade up cost as said here. But right now you can take advantage of the low mortgage rates, which we know what they are
Right.
now versus the speculation of what they will be in the spring. So Kim, do you have any insight on possible spring rates?
Yeah, I don't, like I said, what analysts are saying, and it's crazy that it's already November 5th, in the spring. I know this sounds crazy, but is not that far off. Really, what they're saying now, and like I said, we've been looking to a multitude of them, that they're most likely going to stabilize or potentially tick down. And I would not have thought I would be saying that, but that's what people are saying. We don't see this forecasted, impending increase.
Yeah, which makes this slide not sound as strong and compelling. It's like, oh, you're going to go up. But it's encouraging. We want to see people be successful, and I would rather somebody pay a lower interest rate than a higher one. But
right.
It kind of cancels itself in a way, because if prices do go up and interest rates go down, then the payment theoretically would be about the same as what it is right now.
Right. It almost neutralizes. Right. And don't you think too, though, because I've heard that somebody said that just recently, oh, well, maybe if I wait till spring. But then in the spring, though, you're competing against a heck of a lot more, right? So do you get that as much, the likelihood, if there's lower inventory, to have 10 people lined up with an offer versus when there's 20 houses on the market that are relatively the same, right?
Yeah. So, one of the nice things about COVID is that it has really forced people to be serious about their interest level, because sellers did not want to deal with, looky-loos, as some people call them, which, I say that with respect, but, really it came back to, are you willing to get pre-approved and, have that lined up so that when we go out and look at properties, the seller feels like the risk of exposing themselves possibly to somebody with COVID is worth it. And so that was really one protective measure that NAR really encouraged us to implement as realtors and representing our clients, is to only show properties that are pre-approved. And I think that that's something that's here to stay. I don't see sellers anytime soon wanting to open up their homes to somebody who isn't pre-approved.
Oh, no, especially now with, I'm seeing, just in our community, how many kids are being sent home from school because of contact tracing. And no, I don't see that loosening at all. And, to your point too, Jessica, is that this kind of goes back to those first-time home buyers. Mm-hmm. I have a handful that I can't tell you, I think we talked about this last time, and I don't want to say they're looky-loos, because I know they're serious. I know they want to buy a home, and they're ready to do it. We've given them how many pre-approvals, but where they'll wait, oh, we're thinking about it, and then 3 days pass, and they're like, oh, we really do like it. Well, sorry, it's pending. You, like you said, I really think you do. If this home checks all your boxes and you're serious about making an offer, then I think probably you as a realtor would encourage them, okay, then we need to put something together versus sit around for 4 days.
Yeah, I think my encouragement to buyers who might be feeling that is, we as agents, or at least me as an agent and my type of breed as an agent, never want to push somebody in a house. I think the house will sell itself, and it's my job to help counsel you to understand the steps to make sure that that's a good investment for you and your family. There are some agents who have commission breath and just want to sell you something so they can make a check. But I would say for the most majority of people in my profession, having, previous careers being teachers and nurses, a lot of people get into real estate with prior careers in that background, is we want to help people. So when I get those types of conversations, a lot of times the reservation comes back to really one of two things. They're afraid to commit to a property. It's a big jump and it's just scary. So then we review the process and really identify what that fear or concern is. I think some of it too is a fear of missing out. Like, oh, if I'm going to commit to this house, what if a better house comes up?
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
And then I think if it's not one of those two, it's really just an understanding of how fast the market moves and what has recently sold, which really comes back to a buyer needs analysis and evaluating when you sit down with a client. And I would encourage you, if your agent doesn't do this, to find somebody who does, that when you sit down with them, that you review not only what is active, but what is currently pending and what is recently sold, because that's going to tell you about what is currently moving in the market and how fast did those properties go. Because the last thing I want to say to somebody is, oh, you should put an offer in on this house because it's going to go really fast. Because the client right here, they want me to write an offer, like they just want to sell me something, when in fact, if I know it's a good house, I know there's going to be 3 offers on it by tomorrow, and I don't want you to miss out. And I could say that, but that's not always what people hear.
No, that's a good point. Yeah.
If you are able to review that before there's any type of motivation on the table, and you can just look back at the data objectively, that will help prepare you as a buyer to be a little bit more equipped when those emotions are coming into play, because you can lean back and say, well, this property pended within 9 days and the average time to close in this neighborhood is 28. Let's get it done, because we're like anyway.
And as a realtor too, do you, I'm assuming are you privy to activity on a home that's for sale? Like I don't know, I just don't know enough about that. Like, do you know, okay, yes, X amount of showings have been done, that kind of stuff? And does that weigh into how you would approach that with a client?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of times when I interview listing agents to get background information on a property that I'm showing, I always ask, especially in this market, if they have any offers, if so, how many, and are they able to disclose the terms of those offers? Because on the listing agreement, most of the time, like 98% of the time, it will be that the seller does not permit the listing agent to disclose the terms of the offer because it works against them.
Is that on the BLC?
No, it's in a listing contract. But you as a buyer's agent can ask the listing agent if they are able to disclose what the price of the offer was that they received, because just because they received an offer doesn't mean it's a good offer. It could be a low ball.
Right. Do they have to physically show you that? I mean, they can't just spew something out verbally.
Ethically speaking, they are supposed to communicate what is factual. So if they have received an offer in hand, they can communicate that. They can communicate that there are verbal offers in play. But again, you want to clarify if that offer is verbal or if it's on a contract and in their hand. And then secondly, if you are a buyer and making an offer that includes an escalation clause, keep in mind that escalation clause does have language that says that should your offer be accepted based on the escalation clause terms, that the listing agent will have to provide a copy of the purchase agreement that facilitated that higher price to prove.
Okay, that's good. At least you're protected.
Yeah.
Or the new.
Yeah, you should be anyway. Not every agent out there. I mean, we subscribe as a realtor in our local board to a higher code of ethics. So if somebody says they have an offer, it's supposed to be true, but unfortunately there are bad apples, but it's not representative of the whole.
Okay. No, that makes. Hey, the other thing too, and I totally wanted to ask you this. Why am I seeing an uptick in first right offers?
Yep. I think first right comes back to a lot of times when I see those, it's people who have a home to sell. They are trying to secure a buyer on their property. So they get a contract in place on the home that they would like to purchase. And then
is it kind of like putting a hold on a house, kind of?
Yeah, I like to joke that it's first dibs.
Okay, that's what I was trying to wrap my head around. But why, tell me this, then, where I've seen it, or I've only seen it twice, and this recently, is it it's on homes that have been on the market for quite a while?
I mean, I don't see first rights generally discriminate on like length of time. It doesn't surprise me that you would see it correlated with a higher days on market, because there's less risk that if it's like it makes complete sense. Because if I was a seller going out and trying to purchase my next home, and I wanted more security, which there's a variety of ways that you can accomplish this, but in the context of a first right, if you wanted to pursue a property with a first right intention, going after properties that have been on the market longer or have a higher days on market is a good strategy, because the purpose of a first right allows you to make an offer contingent on the sale of your home or whatever contingency that's in place. And then you have a certain amount of time to relieve that contingency. And then if not, then the deal falls apart. But the protection you have is if a seller receives another offer, you have the first right to choose if you would like to move forward on that contract and, you know, just not deal with the contingency that's in play, or choose to not make it a contingency based transaction, or release the seller from that contract and let them move on to the next person in line.
So, and then you're not, like, say if you did not proceed, you would not be out earnest money or anything. Is that right? I'm not sure.
That one, you know, Kim, I should know the answer to that question.
No, I'm not sure either. We'll find out.
It always trips me up because I can see both sides of the argument.
Right.
And I think that earnest money is returned. So we'll see if I'm
that's what I was thinking, but I'm not for certain. But yeah, we'll get back to you on that one.
I'm going to be embarrassed if I'm wrong. I don't deal with first rights very often.
I know. I hadn't seen, and that's what I was wondering. So it must be acceptable more to a seller than clearly if they haven't had an onslaught of offers.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. A seller is more likely to be open to it. Now, I have had some buyers, and especially if you're a buyer's agent watching this, some people will not show properties that have first right because they don't want to compete with the contract that's already in play. But as a buyer, you actually have a little bit of leverage, because that other offer, there's a reason that they have not chosen to move forward on that property. So there's a chance that even though they have someone else who has the first right opportunity, that you might be able to make that deal work. So
interesting.
Something to keep in mind. Yeah. Sorry, I don't know the answer. I like to be all prepared, and I just haven't had to do it.
There is something I learn new every day. It's just amazing. So yeah.
I don't think I've had to do a first right based offer in like 9 months or more. So just to put things in perspective.
No, and these are the first two I've seen for a long time.
Anyway, it's always good to have a refresher. Okay, so we talked about that slide. The next slide that I had was just on something that we touched on earlier, with interest rates forecasting.
And this is really, I think this is a slide I was speaking to. I mean, this is really in context and correlates to what we're hearing. I mean, and put that in perspective, I mean, the 2023 column is actually lower than where we were a year ago today. So, you know, we're not going to see that, full percent. I mean, I don't think we're going to see that full percentage point increase in interest rate over a year's time span. I mean, you're most likely, hopefully not even going to see, much more than 1/4% rise.
Yeah.
So, that still bodes well for affordability, all the more reason if you are on the fence. I mean, you've got good equity in a home, use that to your advantage.
I'm actually going to switch over really quick and see if I can pull up that slide, Kim, on equity I have in that other presentation.
Oh, right. Yes.
Because the other presentation I had really quick, I mean, we're almost on the hour.
I think people are just pleasantly surprised. I think it's fun. It's so cool to talk to someone who, they're in a home they've been in for 22 years and, always thought maybe, it would be nice to upgrade, but just didn't think it would be possible. And come to find out, how much equity they actually have, and that because interest rates are so low right now, it's just really cool to see people get excited about the opportunities that exist in the housing market.
So what I'm going to do here is share this is a blog that I have, and agents, this is a great resource, but it's, if you're a consumer watching this, you are welcome to subscribe to this, and you can get this blog delivered to your inbox. And I know a lot of times when you subscribe to agent newsletters, it's like, set your clocks back, or
Yeah. The fall recipe, the winning chili recipe, or how to clean your gutters.
Yes. Very generic agent emails, and they make for great social media content, but it's honestly like it's junk mail. Like, I mean, if you really want to have your home maintenance, like Google is a great resource, and I don't mean to I don't mean to downplay like the content.
No, but it's so true. It is, yeah.
So the stuff that's actually worth reading, or the questions that you're going to have about the market, this is a great blog subscription. It's concise. You can read it in 2 minutes on your phone, wherever you read your news.
Now I'm totally curious. How do you get to your blog?
So this is its own website. So what I'm going to do, Kim, is I will put this link in the post.
Okay, cool.
After our videos. So if those watching would like to get more content like what Kim and I are talking about, or you, Kim, you're right here. You and I are talking about tonight. This can get delivered to your inbox as fresh as it comes. But there was a statement in this particular article talking about forbearance, or maybe it was in a different one I read by Simplifying the Market. But still, the things that we talked about today, 4 reasons in a deeper level, is available. And I will include the link, as well as another one on foreclosures. And I think that's actually where it was referring to, Kim.
Oh, right. I think you're right. You had cited a different article.
Here it is.
Did you find it?
Yes, I did.
Really?
Yeah. So that statement on forbearances, if you want to go deeper into that, yes, here it is. In the second quarter of 2020, the average homeowner gained approximately $9,800 in equity during the past year. So equity is really important when we're talking about possible foreclosures related to forbearance, because a lot of homeowners have equity in their home right now that could help prevent them from becoming a foreclosure and having an uptick of foreclosure activity in the market. So that article explains that in further detail.
No, that's really a great point. I mean, that's what I just like to reiterate. Like I said, I think people are so pleasantly surprised at, the equity that they do have in their home, and how they can use that. I mean, and there's so many people that do decide to upgrade and are surprised even more that they're not even having to use the full amount of equity. Some people are saying, okay, we'll go ahead and put this much down, but we want to keep some of that back to pay off some credit cards. And yeah, I think, it's worth having that conversation with someone like you or myself, who can, kind of open that up and show you exactly what you have. I mean, I know from a realtor standpoint, you can put together like net proceed sheets and all that kind of stuff to give them a good idea. I mean, yes. I always tell the people, what did your realtor tell you? What, did they get you? That's kind of a basis on what we'll start to look at. But I know that's not the end all be all, but usually it's pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are able to, whether I'm your go-to agent or someone else in your local market is, we are able to provide you free market analysis and as well as a buying net sheet, or help you anticipate what your costs are going to be to get to closing as a buyer. So feel free to reach out to us. You are not bothering us. I get that all the time. Like, oh, Jess, I don't want to bother you about this listing. It's like, no, that's what I'm paid to do.
Right.
I love doing it.
Yeah.
So I want to say a special shout out to Christine. Christine joined us tonight on Zoom. So thank you for being here, Christine. We appreciate
Thanks,
having
Christine.
you.
Yeah.
And Kim, do you have any last thoughts, since we are right on the hour?
I think I'm pleasantly surprised and hopeful for the future. I do. I think everything, we're seeing good signs now. I feel, I'm hoping that I don't want to, get on the totem pole, but just having a little bit more peace amongst us. And I think, some of that, is just the uncertainty of not knowing what the future holds. And, I think once we get through, everything that's going on this week, we're still in the fires of the COVID thing, but, I think we need to seek some positivity and I know like you said, people, you're not bothering us. We're here to help. And even if it's a small thing, like, I don't know, helping you to figure out how to increase your credit score or, anything, just that's what we're here for. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my encouragement to consumers on the real estate spectrum is that it doesn't really matter who's going to be elected. Ultimately, real estate is still going to do its thing. And there's historical data to show that even every election that's passed, real estate still tends to operate the same way. It does get a little frantic because people don't know. There's a lot of emotion tied up, especially about the policies that are being elected and how that's going to implicate businesses. But overall, the housing market and the economy are operating really strong now. Could the policies that, like, for example, Biden's tax plan long-term impact housing because of how it impacts businesses? Possibly. But I don't think that it's going to create some type of massive recession in that regard. And again, I don't have a crystal ball, so hopefully I'm right on that side of thing. I don't think we really want anybody to, I don't think anybody enjoys forecasting doom and gloom because of how many people that's going to negatively impact. But
right. And I think from, history, unfortunately you have to go through things like what we have as a country. And I think that, 2008 and stuff, we've learned from it though. We have checks and balances in place. We have, you can't breathe on a mirror and get a loan these days. You can't since COVID, the income stated loans are we don't offer them anymore. I mean, so right, there's measures that have been taken to help protect us and make sure that we don't get into that big of a pickle that we did before.
Yep. Exactly. I think that's a great note to end on. If you have any questions for Kim, how do you want people to connect with you?
Yeah, you can give me a call at 317-289-5811, or you can always go to, it's www.todewitt.com. So it's 2dewitt.com. But yeah, just feel free to call me. Like I said, we're always available. My husband and I are both glad to help.
Awesome. And if you'd like to connect with me, my cell phone is 317-679-3223. If you're an affiliate, please don't spam me. I cannot tell you how many spam calls I get, but understatement of the year. But I am more than happy to answer your questions. And obviously I'm going to link this blog resource available here in this post.
So, good.
Thank you so much, Kim, for your time.
Yeah, thank you. I always enjoy it. It's so good to talk to you and see you. And thanks for those who joined. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah. And Kim, special shout out to Kim. Kim agreed today. She's going to help me deliver pumpkin pies. We are forecasting, I think we're going to be closer to 75 than we are 50.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So
good, my car will smell like a pumpkin pie.
It's pretty amazing. Last year, it was like Christmas music. I had a Starbucks peppermint mocha, I think. And then my pumpkin pies. It was a jolly time of year for sure. But for those not familiar, I am giving away pumpkin pies this Thanksgiving. You can go to the pinned post at the top of my Facebook profile page, and register on that, and you will receive a free pumpkin pie. You do need to be local to Indy for that.
And it's a big one. It's not a little pumpkin pie. It's a big pumpkin pie.
Yes, it's huge and always has great reviews. And that will be delivered to your home on Tuesday, November 24th. And Kim is going to help me out with deliveries because I don't think I can logistically.
If I don't eat them before they get to your doorstep, right? Yeah.
I just don't think I can deliver 75 pies in one day. I believe in myself, but I don't think that's logistically possible.
Right. Maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. So anyway, thank you so much, Kim, for your time,
and
everyone for joining in. I hope you all have a great night and look forward to next week.
All right. Take care, Jessica. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.